All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for taking the time and joining our webinar today. My name is Justin Welsh, Vice President of Managed Services here at Frontline. We've got presentation here to go over IT roadmap and what an IT roadmap is and the risks of not having a roadmap. I've got with me on the line here to share the presentation Stevan Brantley and Jeff Frischkorn, who are Directors of Technology who run our client services and build roadmaps and work with our clients on IT roadmaps. This presentation is going to be about 30 minutes long. We've got some time at the end for Q&A. We're going to be going through some concepts and philosophies around IT roadmaps, what goes into them, why they're important, and how they help organizations long term to run businesses and how technology can help doing that.
My name's Jeff Frischkorn, and as mentioned, I'm the Director of Technology here at Frontline Managed Services. I've been working in law firms and non-technical and technical capacities for, 35 years now. Starting at a small place and working in some of the AmLaw 100 firms. I'm kind of interested in sharing this with you, and hopefully it'll be educational. But Steven.
Yeah, my name is Stevan Brantley. I'm a director of technology here at Frontline. I'm here for just over 7 years now, in the same role. So this is definitely something I've dealt with and have evolved at Frontline over the years. So I've worked with many legal firms. I currently have around 20. I tend towards the mid-teens up to about 100 users. So I've developed a lot of roadmaps and done a lot of technology business reviews in my day. So I look forward to sharing some of the information that we have, and the necessary kind of pieces of roadmaps that really help us deliver quality to our clients. So looking forward to it.
Awesome. Look like we've got the deck up on the screen now. So appreciate that, Jeff and Steven. Thanks for joining here with this presentation. And with that, we're going to go ahead and kick it over to Steven. He's going to talk a little bit about Frontline, and we'll go from there.
Yep. We are Frontline Managed Services. We focus solely on legal. So we have IT managed services. We have help desk. We have a NOC. We also have a financial operations division. So we handle clients from three users all the way up to as big as you can possibly get them. So we've been in the business a long time, and definitely we are the largest legal MSP around. So international and everything of that nature as well. And yeah.
All right. I'll just kind of go over the agenda real quick today. First, we'll talk about why an IT roadmap matters for law firm leadership. Then we'll talk about the cost of operating without a roadmap. Then how an IT roadmap protects law firm outcomes, and what a strong IT roadmap looks like. And finally, a Q&A and how to get a free IT roadmap consultation. Go ahead and hit the next slide. So why does an IT roadmap matter? Much like getting anywhere, if you don't really have a map, it's hard to get where you want to go. And in a law firm, the business has to decide where you want to be, and then IT can support that. So do you want to have a mobile workforce? If you make a plan, hey, we want to have people working out of their homes with laptops in a couple of years. You take that to your IT team, they can build the technology to achieve those goals. If you don't have a roadmap, there's a chance that you're going to hit a pothole or something's going to go wrong, and you will not have been able to plan ahead for those potential issues. And those disruptions can take away from business work. Fundamentally, IT supports the business, so that's where that the roadmap comes from. We have a poll question. We're going to ask everybody, do you have a roadmap? So that should be popping up on your screen shortly.
And we'll just take a couple minutes and allow everybody to submit their answers here, and we'll go on to the next slide here. So.
That was quick. I saw some of the results there.
All right, so a little bit of a mix there in terms of folks that've got IT roadmaps out there, and I'm sure probably in different levels of maturity and structure. But that's what we're going to get into next. So, Stevan, you want to kind of talk about the next section here?
Yeah, and this is about the cost of operating without a roadmap, and I've definitely taken over clients that came from other MSPs that did not have a roadmap, or I saw a couple that were informal there. Anything's better than nothing, but as you get well, first of all, firms without an IT roadmap, or you're always reacting. So what's going to end up happening is something breaks, and then you end up spending money on it. It's definitely not. It's a very stressful place to be. This kind of ties into the systems age quietly, creating unseen vulnerabilities. If you're not, what we tend to do is present these roadmaps quarterly, which is typically a good amount of time to readdress and take another look at everything to make sure nothing's changed, and we can at that point, pivot. But security gaps, system age, and all these reactive fixes, they cost downtime, which obviously in legal cost a lot of money. So that's one of the things that a roadmap can really help mitigate. And then I see the last one, leadership lacks visibility into risks, and that's the one that none of us want to have happen, is having to tell the powers that be, oh, all of a sudden we just ran into something that we didn't know about, and now you got to spend $80,000, $100,000 on it. So there's definitely some heavy costs to not operating with one. And you can go to the next slide. I think that's is that Justin? I think
That's me.
Jeff.
Yeah, so talk a little bit about proactive versus reactive IT. The advantage of proactive is you identify risks beforehand and you plan to handle them before they're a problem. It's similar to maintenance on your car. If you never change the oil, your car will keep going for a while, but at a certain point, it'll hit a problem and your engine will be seized up. The advantage of a plan looking forward, hey, we know in 2 years, the network switches are going to be end of life with Cisco, and we're going to have to replace them. So we can say, hey, we estimate that's going to be $30,000 or whatever the cost would be. So you can put that on your roadmap, knowing what the cost is going to be for that in a couple of years, and you can plan revenue streams and other ways to support that expense. If you don't plan ahead, what happens is the network switch stops working. The whole office is no longer functional. You have to get on the phone, call MSP or somebody, hey, we got to get a networking real quick. And sometimes getting hardware and things like that is difficult in this day and age with a lot of the strains on the supply chain. Or even going back to COVID, right? Imagine, trying to buy a laptop in March of 2020. I remember that was very difficult. Whereas if you plan ahead, you've laid down, hey, we're going to need these laptops in a couple of years. So we're going to lay in plans for doing the rollout too, and the disruption that causes. So if you're constantly reacting, you're also not necessarily getting the best solution because what you're doing is slapping something in there to keep it going. So rather than buying a product that's going to last a couple years or a better quality product, you're like, I just need to get this running so the crisis will be over. And maybe what you've done is bought an inexpensive piece of equipment that's going to go bad in another year and a half, or has a vulnerability that if you take some time, you could have found a better product. So it's much better to look ahead and plan than be surprised. Go ahead and hit the next slide. So just talking a little bit about how it protects you. Fundamentally, IT supports the business, as I said earlier. And if the IT is building the road ahead of the attorneys, you're going to have or keep the attorneys productive. We're also going to reduce risk, especially security and other things nowadays. If you let your technology age and don't update it, you're opening yourself to risk for security. You can plan ahead for how much spend you're going to have every year, rather than get surprised with, as Steven mentioned, a $70,000 bill in the middle of the year. You can know, hey, we have to upgrade this equipment. Let's set aside some money for it. We know we're going to have to spend the money to get it taken care of. I also mentioned security posture. Make sure you get the right, most secure equipment. The other thing you do is you can future-proof yourself a little bit. So rather than buying reactively, oh, I'm going to buy the thing that's off the shelf, you can buy a product that's going to last longer. So you'll be ready for going forward. Operational predictability. Again, we can take downtime on the weekend to replace the network switches. We don't have to do it in the middle of the day if something breaks. So we can plan ahead and people can work around that downtime instead. And fundamentally, as leaders of the business, you have a better idea of like, okay, this is what our technology spend is going to be. This is how it's going to affect our profitability. And it's something you can also communicate to the partnership or to other people in the business. Hey, this is what our costs are going to be, rather than have a big surprise come up. And we can go to the next slide on that. And I think that's to Justin.
All right, thanks, Jeff. Appreciate that. Yeah, when what does a strong IT roadmap look like? There's a lot of different things that go on there. When a lot of people hear IT roadmap, they often picture a static document, something created during the beginning of the year, a lot of times saved to SharePoint, never opened again, never referenced. But a strong roadmap is really the opposite. It's a living planning tool that guides decision making throughout the year. Every decision that is made as it relates to IT and technology should support the overall vision and the roadmap. First, it's grounded in business direction, not technology trends. The roadmap should start with firm's priorities. What are the growth plans of the firm? Is there expansion plans? Is there a plan to go international and open up additional offices? Things like that. Risk tolerance. What is your risk tolerance? That's going to define the type of equipment. Just like Jeff said, you can buy a cheap low-end off-the-shelf device, or you can buy something that's going to support additional features and functionality that's going to help later on down the road, specifically around security, for example, having some security features that's going to help with vulnerability management and even cybersecurity insurance. You might have to implement some things that normally off-the-shelf stuff may not support. Client experience expectations, or user experience expectations, Wi-Fi performance, things like that can help drive those types of decisions. And again, predictable budgets and things like that. And then other operational constraints within the business, whether it be financial or operations or such. Technology exists to enable these outcomes, not lead them. I think that's one of the big differences in our approach to roadmap is how can we leverage technology to support the business and what the business is trying to do long term. Second, it creates alignment. Leadership understands where investment is growing and why. IT understands what matters most to the business. Service partners, managing partners know how to prioritize work. So They're not just reacting to tickets. They're advancing strategy. Again, it goes back to every decision that's made as it relates to technology supports the overall long-term roadmap and strategy. Third, it's continuously reviewed. It is not a static document; it's a living document. You're constantly looking at it, you're constantly reviewing it, you're constantly making decisions against it, and you're constantly updating it as business requirements change, as risks change, as vendors change, as staff change, as regulations change. Some law firms will support government contracts, and so that's going to add additional compliance requirements that your technology has to support. HIPAA or FINRA, finance or healthcare organizations have other regulations that you have to comply to. If your roadmap doesn't evolve with those realities, it stops being a roadmap and becomes a history document. And finally, modern roadmaps are heavily influenced by cybersecurity expectations, especially cybersecurity insurance. Some policies, you won't even get approved for some policies if certain things aren't in place. Or your premiums are exponentially higher if you don't meet some of these cybersecurity requirements in order to get cyber insurance. Many organizations discover coverage requirements only during renewal or after a claim, but a strong roadmap anticipates those controls early and plans maturity improvements over time instead of forcing expensive emergency projects. So the goal isn't to predict every project for the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years. That's impossible. But the goal is to create a structured decision framework that keeps technology investments intentional, defensible, and aligned with business outcomes. With that, I'll send it back over to Stevan.
Yeah, and just to follow up with that a little bit, on the cybersecurity front, we've seen claims actually get denied due to lack of certain requirements that they have. So
Yeah.
definitely something to keep in mind. It's one of those growing. It's just nonstop. There's becoming harder and harder regulations from insurance companies regarding this due to the amount of breaches and things that have happened. But yeah, next slide, please. So here's core areas every law firm should address. Obviously, attorney uptime and user experience, that's kind of a no-brainer. We want you guys to be able to do your job instead of wasting your time calling us. So the roadmap is just as much for us to, be able to continue to be proactive and not have to continue to be reactive, and the same on your side.
Hey, Steven, I'll just
Sure.
jump in on that and say, also, when you're out there in the marketplace hiring attorneys, if you get a bad reputation for having frustrating technology, that can be hard to get the really good people to come work for you. So if you have a solid technological base, which the IT roadmap helps with, that also helps in the talent war that we all know is out there. Sorry, go
True.
ahead, Steven.
No problem. Security and risk management, we went over that pretty heavily just now. That's basically protecting your assets and your clients' assets. Obviously breaches and malware, and there's all manner of different things that get protected using roadmaps. There we have security options, and so that is a huge one, and so it's definitely on every roadmap, and it does change, as Justin was saying. Then number three, we've got infrastructure and scalability. That is kind of what Justin alluded to. Are you going to be expanding? Are you merging with another firm? Are you moving? There's a lot of things that go into that, and there's a lot of conversations that we have proactively to gather that information and to add it to the roadmap. As if we have biweekly or monthly meetings as well as our quarterly meetings, those are the kind of things that immediately we ask those questions, get those on the roadmap in order to get an idea of timelines, pricing, scoping, all of that kind of stuff. So it's very important to make sure that everything stays scalable and the infrastructure stays solid. Governance and standardization. You don't want to have half of your users are working one way, the other are working a different way. I've had to clean up some clients that have come in from other places that they're just kind of all over the place. These three people do this and they use this, and these four use something else. Standardizing that is a great way to make everybody's life easier. It makes it easier to support from our side. It makes it easier for us to roadmap, and it makes the user experience at the firm a lot more solid. So you know what's going on, and everybody's not asking different questions that have different answers. Um, Number five, got budgeting and forecasting for future investments and ongoing expenses. Obviously, that's a big deal for anybody spending money. We tried to go out at least 3 years if possible, just to let everybody kind of get an idea of what kind of spend they're looking at. People do not want to have gigantic bills just dumped in their lap. So obviously, budgeting and forecasting is a huge part of road mapping. And then cybersecurity insurance requirements are definitely another one. We've gone over that pretty heavily. If you could, next slide. And these are the gaps that we tend to see, and this is definitely something I've had a ton of experience in. Firms coming in that just no roadmap, and again, I'm in the mid-sized market, so that's definitely one that pops up for me quite a bit with new clients. And it becomes very stressful to them when they first get in because they didn't know what they didn't know. So we tend to look them over, make sure that we get everything in order and get a roadmap out. Now, obviously there's a lot of front end work that ends up on those roadmaps, but once you get a few of those out of the way and get them on the right track, I've seen many firms stable out and become very, very happy with the service. So that's a huge one. Roadmaps that exist but are rarely used or updated, it's very similar. It's just a slight, at least they have something. Overly technical plans with little leadership input. Those tend to be MSPs that they just break fix. They don't really have any client services presence, and so the technical guys just kind of say, "Oh, that's broken," and then they tend to band-aid it without any real overarching plan. And then IT partners who fix issues but don't help with long-term planning, that's basically the same thing. You want to have somebody that helps discuss what your needs are and what's going on. And before I stop, I want to also just say that this all applies to software as well. I know we've been talking about hardware quite a bit, but document management systems, billing, all of the different, redlining, PDF, all of that kind of stuff should be on a roadmap as well, so that you're not getting behind on software as well. So I just wanted to throw that out there before I move on to the next slide. And I believe that is
Yep.
just, yep,
Thanks, Steven. Yeah,
no
so
problem.
this is our last slide before I go into Q&A, but want to kind of go in a little bit of our approach here at Frontline in terms of IT roadmaps. And I think for me, it starts at the onset of an agreement at a partnership with our clients. We go through an onboarding phase as a new client. We go through this onboarding phase. Obviously we've got the obvious stuff like tools deployment and getting you enrolled in our ticketing system and escalation protocols, POC documentation, SOPs, and all that stuff. But as part of that, it's also our introduction to your environment. And part of the onboarding process, we do a level of an assessment to determine what is the age of the equipment, what's the operating systems running in the environment, what different versions of applications are running in the environment. We start building the roadmap from the very beginning during onboarding, and that I think starts the process. So when we go from onboarding to go live and support, we have a starting point, and we give that readout to our customers in terms of here's the state of the union today. Here's some gaps that we're seeing. Let's have a conversation and marry that with where you're trying to go as a business. I've got some customers who are trying to be NIST compliant this year or SOC compliant, so we can do an assessment to determine what is the gap to get to those compliance levels, whatever it may be, or end of life refresh, or application upgrades, or moving to the cloud if that's something that you're wanting to do as an organization. And so our approach obviously is starting that road mapping process from the very beginning of onboarding, and then throughout the life of our partnership, work with our customers directly on a monthly, quarterly basis and check in. There was one question in the Q&A, how often should an IT roadmap be reviewed or updated? Stevan and Jeff, as directors of technology, they mentioned quarterly business reviews, technology business reviews, and this is one of those things that we take a look at and we ask ourselves, is this still current? Is this still the direction we need to go? Do we need to make adjustments to it? And again, going back to, I think a good example is renewing cyber insurance. Some of those things change year over year, and so we might be halfway through our partnership and our agreement, but those might drive different decisions within the roadmap. And so it's constantly changing. It could change on a monthly basis, it could change on a quarterly basis. But for us, we review that with our customers on a quarterly basis to kind of check in on both sides. You know, it's a bi-directional, it's a partnership, it's a collaborative approach between us and our customers. And we just help with getting the environment where it needs to be and supporting the business goals. Other than that, I think that's our last slide. We can jump into, I think, Jeff, you've got one more slide here.
Got one more here.
One more, and we can jump into Q&A.
Yep. So just overall looking back at this, if you think that your technology is outdated, it probably is. If you have like a little worry in the back of your mind or in your gut, it's something you should listen to. There's probably something that you should be worried, you should be concerned about. You know, one thing to frame this is, where do you want your IT to be in a year? You want to have a mobile workforce? You want to have people come back to the office? These are all decisions that an IT budget or an IT roadmap can help create. And overall, if you found this conversation helpful and you're thinking about where you want IT to be, we offer a free IT roadmap consultation. It's not a sales call. It's just a conversation where we kind of look at your systems, talk to you where you want to be, and then help identify gaps. And even if you don't change anything, you'll at least get an idea of where you are at the moment. And I know we'll put another poll up here in a little bit, where if you're interested, just say yes to that poll, and we'll work on getting a time together to work with you on a IT roadmap. And with that, we can go to Q&A too.
All right, it looks like we've got one additional question out there. What do you see as the biggest challenge law firm IT leaders face when trying to move from reactive to proactive IT? Jeff, Stevan, do you guys want to jump in?
Some of the big ones. Obviously, money is always one of them. It tends to, when things start falling apart, usually it's a multi-step approach to fix it. So if you're growing and you need a document management system, you have to, that's a large amount of time. It's also retraining the staff, things like that. Those can be pretty painful, but once they're done, it increases productivity. It makes life so much easier. So it's worth the spend, but it's one of those things, again, where you want to make sure that you have the right people doing it, or it can drag on and not end up being as good as you would think it would be. I'm trying to think of some of the other ones. There's typically large shifts. Hardware shifts are not typically that bad. That it's just a matter of getting better hardware. Moving to the cloud from an on-prem, that can be somewhat difficult, but it's not a huge headache, but it definitely takes a lot of planning. There's different ways to do it, and a lot of that takes input from the firm to figure out, okay, how do you want to utilize this? Because there's more than one way to skin a cat for this one. So yeah, those are two that I could think of.
Stevan,
I would say, go ahead, Justin.
Sorry, Jeff. I was going to add, I think from what I've seen, I think one of the biggest challenges is the predictable budget side, especially when it comes to aging equipment, end-of-life equipment, and it starts failing, and not having the budget for that in the time that it fails becomes a real challenge. I think putting a roadmap together, equipment has life, right? And that's predictable. You can plan that stuff out 3, 5, 7 years, depending on what it is, know exactly when that stuff is going to come into life and being able to budget that. But I think getting out of that hole initially is probably one of the biggest challenges and
Right.
trying to keep the lights on until budget becomes available to replace some of those items, right? And sometimes it takes a year or two to get through that entire life cycle refresh. I think that's one of the big challenges. One of the other things that I've seen is culture shift, right? Legacy systems that might not have OEM support, vendor support. Nobody knows anything about it. We want to move it. It's on aging end of life operating systems, maybe like Windows Server 2012 or 2008. It's just on end of life operating system. You can't do anything with it because you don't have any support for it, but it provides a very significant business function. So you have to keep it on. And so those are some of the challenges that I've seen in the past as well. So things like that. So finding some support or finding a replacement for those types of applications, migrating those applications so you can turn those things down. I think those are some of the bigger challenges that I've seen at least. Jeff, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say, I'll just echo that and say it's business processes that are I worked at a place that used email for tracking bills, right? So email will come into this mailbox, and then somebody would have to sort the mail and save the mail to a different place, where you can go out and buy technology that does that for you, and you can have some of that stuff more automated. But people like, hey, I know this works. I'm not going to miss something. Getting somebody to say yes to something new is difficult. I think the other thing that we sometimes run into is time and attention from people who can make decisions, right? I mean, technology
Yeah.
is the lowest thing on most attorneys' minds, right?
Yeah.
I just want my car to run and get me from point A to point B. But you start talking about, I need an oil change, you got to change the tires. Sometimes it's hard to concentrate minds on that. But again, that's where having a good presentation of a IT roadmap is. You can say at a high level, we have to fix these pieces of our infrastructure, otherwise they're going to fail, and you're going to have these problems. And if you can summarize that in a bullet point for somebody in senior leadership, that's where they want to be. They don't want to be in the woods, looking at all the trees. Um, and
Yeah.
that's the one thing sometimes we run into too, is just getting the right decision makers involved and to say yes to do things. But again,
Well,
that's where a roadmap can come in handy.
yeah, and I was going to say it starts the longer you have a successful roadmap, the easier it gets, and the more
Mhm.
buy-in that tends to happen from the firm as well.
Yeah.
Once you get into 2, 3 years in and everything is functioning well and they're in a happy place, then when the initiatives come up, then it's typically okay, let's do it. They can get confident in knowing that the roadmap works as long as everybody's participating and it's flowing right. So that's always a good feeling to have. It builds trust as well.
And I'll just mention this. I have a client right now where we did a look back at their ticket count or their support problems for the past 2 years, and they started up here, and after some application, it was a painful process to get them off of their old systems, but their tickets are cut in half now because of long, steady progression of adopting up-to-date cloud technologies and other things to make their systems efficient and functional. So that's also a great story you can tell after a couple of years of having a good IT roadmap in place.
And that's all billable hours that the firm is getting back. Yeah.
All save billable hours, less frustration. People
Mhm.
are, can concentrate on getting their work done rather than how to print a document or something
Yep.
as boring as that.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Stephen. It doesn't look like we've got any other questions in the Q&A. So for those that elected to have us take a look at your roadmap, we'll definitely be in touch with that. And with that, I think that will conclude our presentation. Appreciate everybody joining. I know we went a couple of minutes long, but if you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to us.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much,
Thank
everybody.
you.